What if I told you that the history of the United States is not what you learned in school? You might say, sure, my teachers might have had some biases. I didn't learn the actual history or the full story. But that's not it. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to find the truth of American history as uncovered by, by Japan in 1861. Now let's preface this. 1861, what do we know about Japan? Japan had recently ended its policy of sakoku, its policy of isolation from the rest of the world, and now it was bringing in more trade and wanted to learn more about the outside world after this period of isolation. With a combination of some primary sources, or not primary source, but with a conversation with Dutch merchants throughout history and some new information made available, Japan has decided in 1861 to assemble a history of the United States. And one of these histories was a book called Osanaetoki Bankoku Banashi, which is a visual history of the United States written by Kanagaki Robun with the artist Utagawa Yoshitora. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a document found by a historian named Nick Kapur. I'll link his Twitter in the description. He has discovered this 1861 era visual history of the United States written by Japanese in 1861, and we get to see their interpretation of American history. I'm going to show you the pictures, going to read what I can get the gist from Kapur's tweets, and so we can get a better understanding of this historical document. Consider this a Primus Academy video, I guess. The entire book, by the way, I believe is available for free on Waseda University Library. Yes, the entire book's available for free. There's a lot going on here. I will say that I can't read the text. The text is in very difficult to understand handwriting. It's in 1860s era Japanese, so I'm going to be using most of Kapur's commentary to sort of get the gist of what's happening here. But let's take a look, shall we? We're going to go in a rough chronological order, starting with this scene here. What we have here is Christopher Columbus kneeling before Queen Isabella of Spain, reporting his discovery of America. And you might notice, these don't look like the traditional depictions of Christopher Columbus and Queen Isabella. Now we flash forward some years, and here we have George Washington beside the goddess of America. This did happen. The American War of Independence has broken out, and George Washington is defending his wife Carol from a group of British officers under the command of a dude named Asura, with the same characters as the Buddhist deity Asura. I have no idea what's going on here, but this is what the American Revolution was. This is what your history teachers don't want you to know. Now, George Washington here is leading a group of American soldiers. Note that the flag is just stripes. We hadn't added states yet, so we were just stripes. Note the uniform and how ridiculous it looks. Apparently, Kapur points out that the narrator is really hyped about the fact that there are 2 horses pulling this carriage. What we have here is George Washington and his wife Carol meeting with a very young Benjamin Franklin. Yes, that's Benjamin Franklin. So, you know, these great revolutionary minds have come to meet each other. We all remember in our history textbooks where George Washington and Carol met Ben Franklin as the rising sun came over the mountains. That's what happened. Now, Benjamin Franklin's a good lad. He fights in the American Revolution alongside John Adams. That's Benjamin Franklin himself there, holding a cannon with his bare hands, while John Adams gives directions. That's great. I remember the part where, how old was Franklin during the Revolution? Like freaking 70? Lifting the cannon and firing as John Adams points where to fire, because John Adams was heavily involved in the combat of the American Revolution. He was on a boat. He was either in Europe or on a boat during most of the war. He checked out some of the battlefields at like Lexington and Concord, but for the most part he fired some shots on a boat going to Europe and then pretty much stayed in Europe the entire war. Now, John Adams and Benjamin Franklin are depicted as great friends in this book, but something happens when John Adams just casually fires an arrow at Benjamin Franklin as he rides away, and Benjamin Franklin doesn't even flinch. He just watches it miss him. But something happened, their friendship has been ruined. Okay. The real John Adams and Benjamin Franklin had some disputes while they were in France over how to best conduct diplomacy. I'm not sure if that's what this is showing here. Anyway, here's John Adams having a nice picnic lunch with his mother. You know how it be. I assume the War of Independence has been finished at this point because John Adams is home, but then again, all my knowledge of American history is pointless when it comes to the true text. These, my friends, are the sacred Jedi texts. But John Adams gets too obsessed with the food and doesn't notice when a giant snake monster consumes his mother. You know how it be. You know, living on the frontier of the American colonies, giant snake monsters eat your mother at picnics. Here's a nice picture of John Adams fighting the giant snake monster with a sword. But what we know later on in the text, that we know that this probably doesn't go that well when he's on his own. He might have been unable to defeat the snake, so he climbs up a mountain and meets with the mountain goddess. I should note that the mountain goddess kanji here is an old kanji for mountain and the kanji for woman, but the character for the goddess of America also uses those two characters, so maybe the goddess of the mountain is also the goddess of America. So John Adams visits the goddess of America and asks for help. The goddess of America summons a large hawk to help John Adams defeat this giant snake monster. Thanks, America. And working together, the giant hawk sent by the goddess of America and John Adams slay the great snake beast. That's what happened in John Adams' administration. Not the Alien and Sedition Acts. But to leave you guys off, here's a picture of George Washington fighting a tiger with his bare hands. I've learned about this book a long time ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. So, I thought, since we have a big history community on this channel, that, you know, bringing this up would be a fun little adventure for us to take a look at. So I hope you don't forget about this like I don't forget about this. You can't forget about this. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you want more history videos or other nerdy stuff, check out the channel, subscribe if you have not yet. The links to Nick Kapur's Twitter and this thread, as well as the book itself, can be found in the description below. Consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel continue and go on to better heights. And yeah, have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Huge thanks to our patrons, including this month's $10 plus patron, Josh Adkins. Check out the description for more patrons and more info about how you can receive a shout out here.